welcome to Past, Present, and Future, or Three Questions, the podcast where we learn about people's career journeys, how they got to where they are today, and where they'd like to go to next. I'm Parrots Cohen, a technologist and a wordsmith, and in my time in industry, I've been fortunate to work with both large companies and small startups, alongside a number of very talented and hardworking individuals. This podcast is some of my conversations with them, where we learn about their journeys and what motivates them. If you'd like to be in the podcast, please feel free to reach out. You don't have to have a certain level of seniority or a number of years of experience. We all have something to share and learn from each other. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast or get involved in the collaboration, we'd also like to hear from you. All right, looking forward to our journey together as we learn more about each other and enrich ourselves in the process.
Hello, everyone. Today we have an exciting guest. We have Philippe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brett, and happy to be here.
All right, let's take it from the top. Let's dive into the beginning of your career and how that journey evolved into where you are today.
Yes, so the beginning of my career, I think my beginning of my career on ESG doesn't start on ESG per se. I talked about this a little bit before. I think the beginning of my career it's in the kitchen, right? I work in professional kitchens as a professional chef. And I think in professional kitchens, you leave sustainability before even you understand, or I mean, not understand, but you know the concept and go deep into the like circular economy. I think it's you live and breathe circular economy in the kitchens. Not because necessarily you are like really deep into the concept or really care about that, but I think it's more of a necessity, right? Resources and saving costs are always top of the mark, and you have a limited budget. So how to optimize and become efficient, it's something that you learn early in your career. And the more you advance, the more you start seeing this circular economy actually not being a policy or something theoretical, but something that you live, breathe in and breathe out, day in and day out, right? From a piece of chicken where you use 100% of the chicken to a piece of equipment that you will use till you break it into parts and try to sell the parts because you don't want to lose any of that, right? So I think that's part of my sustainability journey start there, and the other side of it was a lot of program management happens in the kitchen, I think, and a lot of project management. You know, I think the definition of a project is like has a start and an ending. And if you think about a restaurant, that's every day, right? The restaurant opens and closes. So every day you have a project that is served from 40 people to 5,000 people. It depends where you are. So also as a chef, you have to learn a lot of logistics, inventory ordering, HR policies, regulation, fire department, there's sanitation. Uh, you have to become a plumber, you have to become an electrician. You become really a generalist in a lot of things and an expert in cooking. So there's a lot of things that I think you don't see on these food shows on your career that you become beyond just being a cook, that it's being a businessman. So that's kind of like the 15 or I think 20 years of my career in that industry that I love and care. But it's a hard and very demanding industry. It's long hours, long days. And then I transitioned into the corporate world that we call business and industry. I was called to cook and help open kitchens on Twitter. So different set of a different reality, I guess, where budgets and at that time, I guess, was painful. I was like, my eyes were like, wow, there was a limited budget. There's no food costs. There's no labor costs you have to follow. There's like no margins. There's no cash flow. And that was eye-opening, and I see the other side of the industry that I didn't get to see, and I see how circular economy was not a part of that process, and try to implement it on the tech world, being like, well, uh, uh, kind of like bring that restaurant culture into that side of the industry. And working on that, then I got hired at Box to work as a cook, and then uh, through the pandemic, everything closed, and so you have to be resourceful. I brought my project management skills into projects that were needed at the time, and I started working into ESG, like start answering ESG questionnaires, like not only on sustainability, for like governance as well. You know, talking about labor and human rights, health and safety, the governance of a side of the company. So one thing I think I learned through the years is how to be resourceful and to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I think that's a very good skill you learn as a cook, how to be uncomfortable, but that being have comfort in that. So navigating this was easier for me, as I think got a thick layer of like being okay, being uncomfortable, not knowing all the answers, and not being ready to. I think I was never ready for any of the positions I cook on or any of the tasks I was getting to be set to be take on. I think I was never ready, and I would never be ready to say, "Oh yeah, I'm 100% ready to do this." But I just, I always jump in the pool and then always find out if it was full or empty. And most of the times it worked. But yeah, so kind of like that's kind of a summary of my upbringing. It's not very I'll say traditional. I didn't go to prestigious school and then have like that yeah degree that support all these, and I work with brilliant people, and then by all means I would never say don't do that, but I think I just had another path, and I thought I was going to do something, and then life and circumstances take you somewhere else, and you just have to adapt. So yeah, I think my career has shown me adaptation, being okay, being uncomfortable, being okay saying I don't know and asking questions, letting my ego go. I think that's a big part of being a good professional. So yeah, that's kind of like the summary. And now, obviously, I'm full on ESG and sustainability. I took classes and certifications and work with really good professionals that have taught me a lot. So it's a fascinating world where I didn't know that I would love like policy and regulation and the other side as well that much.
That brings us to the present, and we can definitely stick to more broad strokes if necessary in terms of confidentiality. But I'd love to kind of hear about kind of your thoughts overall and what it's like standing up an ESG function from the ground and really kind of bring kind of a central working team of one to a degree in standing up this function and kind of coordinating and packaging ESG as not just a societal good, but as a kind of a corporate and kind of company kind of booster as well.
It's a interesting job, I think. I think cross functionality and support from a lot of people is absolutely necessary. This is not like a one hero work where you're gonna do everything by yourself. I think there is, there's, as I said, brilliant people. There's scientists. There's like people that I met that are just like work with numbers that understand things that I don't, and I would never even say that I would try because that's not my expertise. So it's like really just trying to make connections. I think having that human connection with uh, uh, those teams and make them understand why are we doing. I think it's a big part of how to work and make this ESG work be sustainable to be so I think it's that part. It's how do you work with people, being able to really connect team over team and make it understand that this work not only affects or legal department or workplace services or the cloud, but it's affecting everybody as one, right? It's going to affect you in 10 years, it's going to affect you in 30 years, it's going to affect your how you do your way of work somehow. And I don't think that happens in one pass, right? It's a process. It's like I do practice some martial arts, and to get good at something, it doesn't happen the first time. It doesn't happen the second time. It happens 3 years later, when it kicks in and everything starts making sense. I think it's the same for this. It's a long marathon run where you don't want to overdo it and be like super excited because it's a trend. I think you have to be cautious. You have to really ask the right questions to the right teams, to the right people. And before you start running, I think you got to pause again and say, okay, before we go and just try to do what it sounds really good and it's amazing to do, is it going to be sustainable, or are we going to have to be like pull back because we really yet don't understand what we're doing? So I think like that caution and that again is you feel uncomfortable because sometimes you feel like you're falling behind and you're like, oh my god, like all these other companies are just like running, or all these other sustainability people that I talk, they know this and they have all this lingo and they have done all this beautiful work, and I'm like not yet there. So I'm sitting in the room quiet when all these other experts are just like I can say sometimes even bragging about what they're doing. And then 3 years later, it's like, oh, well, now we have to be very cautious about that. So now we have to retract and slow down really, really a lot. So it's like, oh, now we caught up at a very slower pace. So we never had to retract, but we have like checks and balances and controls and a very solid foundation. So I thought, for me, I think it's like slow and steady in this case is better than flashy and like a big bang that is just for the moment. So I think that creates trust, right? And trust from those teams as well is absolutely necessary, right? You need a trust from every organization that you're working on, that the data that you're managing, that the what, how are you gonna talk about it? What are you gonna do with it? You are being very cautious. You are being very cognitive about it, and how are you like presenting it is also in the right way, right? You don't want to greenwash. You don't want to overpromise. You don't want to do any of those things. So once you have that trust, when you have those commitments, I think then your ESG program is something that is like now embedding slowly in the program, right? In the company, sorry. It's like the roots of the tree. They start expanding and expanding and expanding. And all of a sudden now you have teams of people that are now talking about ESG naturally without you imposing or saying that, okay, here's the ESG person or sustainability person. It's like, oh my God, what do they need? It becomes like, hey, I see this, let me Slack you. So now it's a natural thing that people are asking me without me reaching out. And that's, I think, what has changed the dynamic. It's not me now doing the exercise of enablement and kind of like let them know why this is important. Now it's like, oh, this is a present thing that happened. Let me tell you, this is what I found out, this is what I heard, this is what's happening, what do you think? And that's all built on that trust, that's all built on that people, and that's building that culture of like, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to be the expert on your area. I'm here just to tell you this is what I know that we need, but I need your expertise to kind of like guide me on this road that we haven't crossed, but you have the tools better than I do. I'm just connecting the dots. So I think all that has made this I think a success. You know, we have making programs. I think a success is just like having that trust in people. For me, is always what you want to have, and it's like that buy-in and understanding, not just doing things because you have to do things, but it's doing things because you understand why you're doing it and what's the outcome and the impact of those things.
The approach of being methodical and not kind of trying to sprint, but kind of seeing it more as a marathon is definitely one that is more sustainable and kind of, I guess, feeds into the sustainable idea of being sustainable in itself and kind of being something for the long term and not kind of a short term goal. And in a way, I think your career fed into that and kind of in seeing things in that way and seeing things operationally and not just seeing kind of what is the short-term goal, what is the splashy thing we can do, I'm going to make a horrible joke, what's the splash thing we can do to get a Michelin star? It's more, what's the sustainable, what's kind of the long-term impact.
Yes, absolutely.
Continuing on in that vein, where do you kind of see the future of ESG governance evolving, and kind of in how kind of that can be continue to be sustainable, and how that can be kind of programmatically kind of supported, especially as into to not delve too much into it, but to at least hint to it, like as that space evolves, as the public perception and appetite maybe evolves and shifts due to kind of other headwinds, how does that continue to evolve while still being so important? How does that continue to be supported, especially kind of in corporate layers?
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing that I always am a advocate for, and that I see sometimes gets forgotten, is when we talk about policies, when we talk about regulation, when we talk about reports, when we talk about how we do things, why we do things, we usually forget to mention the people that are at the end of it, right? The people that sometimes don't even understand the regulation, don't get to see the regulation, don't go to the meetings with the California board or the CARB to make changes to SB 261, SB 253. I think one of the things that should be a part of all this is like how the impact on the people and how the people are being informed, and the recipients, the people that would never see this policy but will feel all the effects of it, right? I think that's one part that I always see it's overseen. Uh, Reporting all that is good. It's I think it's necessary, and regulation is necessary. Don't get me wrong, but I think part of that I think that would change a little bit how we see in a more pragmatical sustainability and ESG and governance. How do we put that S more of just as a philanthropic donation, and doing the right thing, but saying like how it's actually affecting this decision, the community and the people that are receiving it. So I think one of the things that we should be thinking about that is that too. Second part, where I see this going, I think now it's not a trend anymore. More and more countries are following these, and the more we move into the future, I think this is going to be more prominent for businesses, and businesses are going to have to comply, and businesses are going to have to really start looking at how to do things. I think another necessity from an ESG perspective, sustainability, is standardization of some like protocols. I mean, I know there's GHG protocol, but how are we doing reporting? Like maybe a global standard, gold standard, where I can compare things to, like, and everybody's doing it to the same place, and not just right now. I still think is still a little bit all over the place. Not like probably 10 years ago. So it's still going towards that trajectory, and I think that's a good thing. But I think there's still more work how to get there, but seeing the work like in California doing that, in EMEA doing that, or Europe with CSRD, then you have some work in Japan that I've been following a little bit. So I think we're going there. So I think we're starting to get into that kind of like standardization in all these countries and places, to start getting into a common place on how to report and how to compare and how to like look into how to do things in a more conscious way with purpose. I think that's where we're going, and I don't think there's a way back to say, oh yeah, this is really bad for the planet. Like, well, let's don't do this, or this is bad for businesses. I think now it's starting to be embedded as a business practice, and it's embedded in governments. So yeah, I think this will grow. I think there's still way lots to learn. This is new, and still, well, not as new, but I think the regulation side and how we're moving is starting to be more prominent, and we still learn. And then there's like still like with California, you've got the SB 261 gets stayed, so you have to pull back, and then you have to do it or you don't do it. And uh, but I think with all those pains, there's growth, right? I don't think a flower needs rain and sun to be a flower. So I think this is necessary to learn. Like you just don't learn because everything is great. You learn because of pain. I think that's when you learn the most, when it hurts. So uh, I think those painful points is when you say, okay, this is didn't work. So now we know how to move on. And I think that's what's happening now. It's like we're past some of those pain points, and now we're starting to get into places where like, oh yeah, this is now things that we're doing. We're doing a TCFD report because of like companies, there's like the floods that happened when the IV bags were gone, like 90% of the production was gone. Well, now you understand why you need TCFD and a risk report for some, the climate risk report for some companies, because it disrupt the whole chain supply. So yes, that's a pain point, and that's why this report is like for a tech company might not be too like business continuity would not be too important for some of them, but for some other companies is, and maybe some of the information lives in a tech company. So you can use a company to store your data there. So if you lose your data, the tech company has a TCFD report that shows you that their business continuity is safe, right? So, like, I think we're starting to learn all those things, and that comes from pain points, and we will keep moving towards where we need to be.
So I think the one thing that kind of emerged really strongly was that it's not a trend that can be kind of buffeted by headwinds. This is kind of, it may shift in terms of the branding or the perception of it, but this is kind of core across countries, not just in the US, but globally. The other thing you really mentioned was kind of shifting to not just kind of the overall policy, but how does that impact individual business and individuals within these locales, kind of where these regulations are coming out. And the third piece, which is fascinating as someone from an engineering background, is there's aspects beyond just the actual policy enactment itself. There's the disaster recovery. There's kind of that software engineering kind of resiliency mindset of kind of, or kind of site reliability engineering, to borrow the Google term, which is quite fascinating. Um, Before we close, not to be reductive, would love to know what would be kind of the dish that you're like the most proud of all time, that like it was either challenging or it hit all the notes. I know it's like picking a favorite child. I know it's difficult, but would want to kind of lob that your way.
For favorite dish, I mean, there's so many ways to slice these. As a chef, I think after a long day of work, my favorite dish would have been a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and just lay down in the couch. You are working 13 hours surrounded by food, so or a slice of cold pizza. That would have been the best. Now, if I'm cooking it in a restaurant, I think a favorite dish, it could be something like might sound simple, but could be like an onion soup. An onion soup has so many steps into it. It takes sometimes 3 days to make because there's steps aligned. But I don't know. I'll be doing discredit. Like I cook different types of cuisines. I cook like Southern cuisine. I cook barbecue, Japanese, French, Italian, Peruvian, and each one has its own intricacies and technicalities like I said, regulations and rules and ways to do things. That I think for me, what makes the best dish is showcasing what you are preparing, right? If you are preparing a carrot, I want to taste the carrot, and I want the carrot to be the star of the plate. So whatever comes around is supporting the star of that plate. So and it's simple, right? Italian cuisine is very simple sometimes, and don't get me wrong, by simple meaning something that it's easy to make. If you try to cook with 3, 4 ingredients, so you can make it really good, then you have master cuisine. It's not simple to just grab 3, 4 ingredients and have like a good dish that is like well presented, well done. So yeah, I just think it's mastering and how to use the ingredients and showcase their flavor the best way you can, and then how you transform them, but without losing the essence of what it is. Sorry, I get philosophical into this.
No, it's awesome. I'm learning a lot about just cuisine and kind of and the chemistry that is being in the kitchen. Again, so thankful for having you here on the show today. I think people will learn a lot, and it's really not about kind of where you begin or how your career starts out. It's really kind of the decisions and pivots you make along the way. And I think it's helpful for me. I'm learning a lot from this, and I think for listeners as well to learn that you can continue to evolve and continue to take risks and make decisions in your career that will lead you to places you never could have imagined. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.